Do you drive? I've only just got
Yes.
my driving license, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd like to start with a little analogy that I've become quite fond of. So
Hmm.
with a car engine, a turbocharger can be nice. A turbocharger can make the car go faster, but the turbocharger isn't actually necessary, is it? A turbocharger runs on fuel. Sorry, an engine runs on fuel. And imagine that you're an auto mechanic and you've only ever dealt with car engines that have turbochargers. Is it a problem if you think the turbocharger is necessary? I think it is. As an auto mechanic, even if all the cars you ever touch all have turbochargers, it's important for you to realize that the turbocharger is extra and that what actually makes the engine turn is the fuel. And I want to take this analogy and move it to the world of teaching, because in these videos, the videos I've made, I'm trying to give people a taste of what ALG is like, automatic language growth. But
Hmm.
the hard reality is that ALG is not going to fly in a school context anywhere in the next 20 years because everybody wants results now. Everybody wants to be able to speak now. So given that, things like TPRS are a good idea because it's not just comprehensible input, it's also transparent input.
Hmm.
So you tell the students what each of the words mean, and then you give them the input, and it goes faster. However, something I've observed, which may or may not be completely accurate, is that what happens is a lot of TPRS teachers have only ever dealt with transparent input. And so they're a little bit like the auto mechanic who thinks that you have to have the turbocharger for the engine to work at all. So
Hmm.
what I'm bringing to the table here, I'm not saying don't do TPRS. What I am saying, though, is you need to see what happens when you take away the turbocharger. The engine still runs because the engine runs on the fuel, and the fuel is comprehensible input, the construct, not comprehensible input, the method. So
Hmm.
comprehensible, the construct is you understand what's going on, you can follow what's going on, and your subconscious will automatically make the form meaning connections. But I can talk about this all day. The point is demonstrating it. So what I've done is 30 stories. I put them on YouTube. They're 20 minutes each on average, so that's a total of 10 hours. But they're in a tiny, tiny constructed language called Toki Pona. So even after only 10 hours, you can experience how your brain is putting things together. Um, However, let's say you don't have 10 hours to spare. Well, let's talk to somebody who has watched all 10 videos and see what happens. So that's what I'm doing today with Cade. Welcome, Cade.
Hello.
Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we have a little chat in Toki Pona, I'd like to just get to know you a bit as respects languages.
Hmm.
What's your background with languages, would you say?
Hmm. Well, I teach Japanese to foreign students in Japan. Is what I do for a profession, and so I've spoken Japanese. Um, I don't know, since like the late 1990s. So it's been a while, and I've lived in Japan for probably about 20 years. Um, and Japanese was my second language. After Japanese, then I learned some Japanese Sign Language because my wife does sign language interpreting, and we have some deaf friends, and so I learned some of that, which has gotten quite rusty because I haven't used it. Like it's more receptive now because I just listen to or watch what my friends do when they're talking to my wife. Um, I speak Spanish, which I learned here in Japan through comprehensible input, basically listening to podcasts and stories and things like that. Um, I did study or acquaint myself with verbs uh, in Spanish. I mean, I didn't try to memorize them. It was just more like trying to figure out what on earth was going on because it's a mess in Spanish, the verb conjugation. Um, After Spanish, I did Mandarin Chinese, through Comprehensible Input. And with Mandarin Chinese, I started using Steve Kaufman's program Link, and also podcasts again. And I have a lot of students that are Chinese, and so I did some kind of crosstalk exchanges where I would speak in English to them because they wanted to learn English, and they would, speak in Chinese to me. Not so much of that, because I don't have time, and it's much easier flexibility-wise for me to listen to a podcast than trying to schedule something with a student. But I have done some of those things, and then right now the language that I'm working on is Hungarian, because I have ancestors from Hungary, and I want to be able to research, genealogical records for them. And so I've been working on Hungarian since August of last year. August is when I start a new language, kind of. That's like my new language starting time.
So, Katolom was Hungarian, wasn't she?
Yes.
Yeah. I found an interview with her that's subtitled in English, but in Hungarian. It's like Hungarian. It's a really
the black and white
language. Yes.
Yeah. I don't understand much of it. I tried. I was like, I wonder, how much.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's a really interesting story. So you have a lot of experience of the process of learning languages, you would say.
Yeah. And my viewpoint has changed radically, especially since I learned Spanish through Comprehensible Input.
Right.
And that was kind of like an really eye-opening thing for me, because before that, I don't know, how much you know about kind of like constructivist ideas, but I was really Vygotskian, and so I thought that basically, that you have to learn a language through social interaction.
Okay.
And that's like the way that languages are learned, and this idea of like comprehensible input is ill-founded or kind of old-fashioned or something like that. But I found out from my own experience that it's certainly not ill-founded.
Okay, because this is interesting, because what I've always found, and of course Krashen will also frame it like this, as a dichotomy between skill building and input-based comprehension. But of course, this is like the communicative approach, maybe, that I've seen referenced in places. I haven't really come into much contact with it, so it's interesting that you have some extensive knowledge of that. So if you think of, if I pardon my ignorance, but I would imagine that kind of a thing views language as wholly an interaction, and would therefore encourage interaction from the beginning as participation in a back and forth communicative, activity in society, social activity. And this idea of sitting back and letting something wash over you as a one-directional thing is anathema to that. Do I have it more or less right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Exactly. And so the first thing that I realized when I started learning Spanish, or when I started acquiring Spanish, is that that idea of like having to do it through interaction, and preferably even like, if you go to the country, it seems like you almost would have to go to the country really to acquire the language through interaction, because or to have friends, or to have a wife or somebody like that. I really started to realize how limiting that is, because it's like, how many people can do that?
Yeah.
But if it's something that we can get through comprehensible input, then it's like, with the technology today, it's possible for almost basically everybody that has access to the internet. So
yes, and like you say, it's an inspiring idea, but the sheer volume of content that's required means that the market also needs to be ready for that, right? It's a big undertaking to provide all of the content that's needed, I think. So if the market isn't convinced that this is the way, then it's kind of a catch-22, I think.
Certainly. And it depends on the language too, because, you know, some languages have a lot more content available than others.
So why did you decide to go ahead with this challenge then, with the 30-day Comprehensible Input Challenge?
Well, it's almost a whim, really. I saw your blurb on this, I think it's the Story Listening Facebook page or something. And I listened to what you said, you know, about this little language of 120 words, and you know, the idea of watching 30 videos and seeing, you know, where that takes you. Just really, you know, I thought, well, if there are 30 videos of 20 minutes, you know, I probably could do that during spring break before classes start. And then, you know, I got this kind of idea that, well, maybe I can use that in the class in second language acquisition that I'm going to be teaching to graduate students in starting from the middle of April, and have them, because you know, planning the class and wanting them to learn about comprehensible input and using that, because you know, so much right now is like, you know, this idea of the communicative approach. And although there's the idea that comprehensible input is important, a lot of the students that I deal with have kind of a warped idea, or a kind of it's like, you know, it's good if you have that, but they don't really even know what it is, and don't really know, you know, what it's like a spice, or, you know, a seasoning, like, you know. And I really wanted them to experience what it is like to acquire a language through comprehensible input, like I had with Spanish or with Chinese. And but, you know, having them learn a full-blown language, you know, isn't going to work. So when I heard that, it just kind of, you know, clicked when I heard your blurb, and I thought that would be really kind of a cool way to do it. So. Nice. And I thought, you know, I need to probably get a little bit of a handle on the language myself first, you know, so that I can judge, you know, how well they do with it. So
okay, so we'll get this interview out the way, and then you can go and study it.
Yeah. I've got some things that I want to check out.
Of course. All right. So
rewatch all of the videos.
I mean, knock yourself out. I mean, thank you very much for holding off on researching the language before we finish the experiment, though. So thank you very much for that patience. So just to establish, you know, deviation from baseline, just for the purposes of science. Did you know any Toki Pona before you started watching the videos?
No, not even a single word.
Okay. While you watched the videos in this period, from when you started watching the videos until this interview, have you studied any Toki Pona? Have you looked up any words? Have you, I don't know, have you done any of that kind of analysis?
No, everything intentionally comes from the videos. I did look up a little bit about like the backstory, because I was curious, like, you know, where this language came from, you know, what the deal is with it. And there are still a lot of fuzzy things. I'm still not really sure. You know, I have learned some names and some dates and things like that. And you talked about it also, you know, in the 30th episode.
Yes, it's true.
So okay. But that's the extent of what I know.
But that's not linguistic knowledge at all, though.
No.
Okay. And did you watch one video a day for 30 days, or were there gaps? Did you watch more than one at a time? You know, how did you watch the videos?
I only ever watched one video a day, but I wasn't able to do it like with an unbroken chain.
Right.
Typically, I would watch like during weekdays and sometimes on Saturday if I got the time, but there were some times that the weekend was without. But basically, Monday through Friday, pretty steadily.
So would you say the period has been like a month and a half, roughly? 2 months?
Probably something like that. Yeah, a month and a half.
Okay,
like
all right. Okay, because that's also interesting. So it might be interesting to see if watching one video every 2 days works better. That might be interesting, right? So anyway, it's interesting to hear that it's been spaced a little bit more. We'll see what happens. So there we go. Drum roll. Here it comes. Toki.
Pona, mi pona. Sina pona?
Mi pona. Pona tawasan.
Pona. Sina yo soeli kalama?
Ala.
Soeli ala.
Yo ala e soeli.
Mi li yo soeli kalama.
Sina yo e soeli kalama? Anu seme? Nililon?
Lon.
Soeli kalama sina? Li suli anu lili?
Suli lili.
Suli
lili. Lon. Suli ala en lili ala.
Sina en melisina li yo e soweli lon tempo ale anu tempo sin?
Tempo ale yo soweli kalama tan tempo sike tempo masike luka
Misona. Soweli ni li sike e suno lon tempo luka no seme?
Lon. Tempo pinila. Yo soeli kalama ante. Li moli.
No.
En tempo nila.
Soeli kalama sina pi tempo ni li sike e suno lon tempo pinampa seme?
Tempo tuan.
Tuan. Li soeli sin.
Soeli sin.
Mi olin e soeli. Mila mi wile eni. Mi kenala taso mi wile eni. Tempo wan la mi wile yo e waso toki. Mi sona e waso toki ano seme?
Mi sona.
Tempo
lili la. Tempo mi lili la. Mi yo e waso toki.
Sina yo e
taso ken ala toki.
Nimi ona li waso toki, taso waso ni li ken ala toki. Musia. Mila waso toki walo. Waso toki walo li nasa. Li toki li pakala e yo ale. Li musi lon tempo ale. Mi musi mute kan waso samani. Taso mi sona ala. Waso sina pi tempo lili sina. Li kule seme. Kule pi waso toki sina pi tempo pini. Li kule seme. Li walo, anu lasso, anu lote.
Kule. Lasso.
Lasso.
Mm. Mm.
That was very good. So what did you just talk about?
About pets.
Yeah.
I asked you if you had a dog,
Yeah.
and I said that I have a dog, and you asked me how long I've had a dog, and I kind of misunderstood, I think, and told you that we've had our dog for 15 years, but I was trying to say that we have had dogs for about 15 years, but
It wasn't
they have died.
it wasn't a misunderstanding really, because what you said could have gone either way, which is why I asked to clarify. So it wasn't that it was a misunderstanding, it was just that what you said could have meant either thing. So we continued talking and narrowed it down.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then we talked about birds.
Yes.
And I said that I had a talking parrot that couldn't talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I was saying that one day I can't now, but one day I would like to have a parrot, but a specific kind of parrot. Did you maybe catch what kind of parrot I was talking about? What would you guess?
A white parrot that is crazy and breaks everything. Are you talking? Is it like a what do they call them? Not a cockatiel.
No, not that cockatoo.
Cockatoo, from Australia. Okay.
Perfect. That's very good. That's very good. So I want to ask you something. Just a couple of questions, just what you think. So I guess it's two questions in one. The first question is, do you think it helped that it was spaced a bit more? You had watched one video a day for 30 days and then bang interview. Would it have been this good? Or is it can maybe better because you had a bit more time for it to ferment? That's one question. The other question is, this interaction went very well. As an experienced language learner, do you think that might have contributed?
I would answer probably yes to both questions. I kind of felt like sometimes when I had a little bit of space in between the videos, that things like my brain was kind of working things out, and so it had kind of a chance to, like, by the next video it had kind of worked some things out, and so I was ready to go. And if I hadn't have done that, maybe it would be like my brain would start to get behind or kind of lag, like, I hadn't really thought about that, but as I was going along, it started, at first it was like, it was just like a sea of words, and I couldn't understand really anything. But as things started to go along, I really started to feel like I was starting to catch on, and that kind of sometimes when I had a little bit of a break, a breather in there, not too long, but that helped to kind of give me time to sort things out, I guess. Yeah. Great. And then for your second question about experience learning languages and if that helped, I think in a lot of ways it helps with things like pronunciation and things like being able to like I couldn't explain to you like how the grammar of Toki Pona works, or like what, maybe I could a little bit, but it's like there are parts that are analogous, I think, or that were recognizable to me from other languages.
Yes.
It works in Japanese, or that's how it works in in Spanish or whatever it is, or in English, even.
Yes.
But to see recognizable parts makes it immediately like familiar, and so then it's not, seems like it like the puzzle piece is easier to fit in, I guess.
Yes, I think that makes sense. So of course you already had experienced learning a language through comprehensible input before, so but it's an open question. Has your perspective changed at all after doing this challenge, or has it just done things for you?
It's changed a little bit, I think, and it has confirmed for me also. The part that has changed is that, like, when I was doing Spanish or Chinese through comprehensible input, I was still using like obviously, especially with Chinese with link, if I didn't understand a word, I would look it up so that I could understand it. And then it was like, that would allow me to work through content that was actually, much too difficult for me. But because of that, it was like kind of a help that would let me work through that. And this has been the first time that I really just relied 100% solely on the input and tried to understand what was going on just from watching your drawings and trying to figure out what was going on.
Yes.
And so that has kind of changed my perspective as to the power of comprehensible input, and a little bit about what you talked about transparent input and comprehensible input. And I think that before I was using more along the lines of transparent input. Like, I was making it transparent for myself by looking up the words and stuff. And this is the first time that I've really experienced and seen that it's possible to acquire a language with just letting your brain work things out and understanding just, maybe a certain percentage, like 70% of what's going on, but there's still a lot of fuzzy, things going on.
I mean, I'm not telling anybody to not use transparent input, and I'm not claiming that transparent input doesn't work or that, it's inferior per se to comprehensible input. But, I have a little bit of experience of language teaching, and it just occurs to me that if you have it in your head that it must be transparent, otherwise nothing will work, then it could make you become more anxious than you need to be about explaining things. So as I understand it with TPRS, you're trying to explain what all the words mean. But if you see that as more of a kind of turbocharger, as it were, well, we'll try that. If the students can kind of remember most of what you told them before the actual input, that's actually going to be enough. If they can follow along with what's going on during the input, that's where the real magic happens. If you have that in your head, I think it could it could help you as a teacher, especially when some students aren't so good at like memorizing things. And
yes.
Like, well, you told them last week, they forgot it by this week. So it doesn't matter because at that time they remembered what it meant during the input. So it's fine, no problem. I mean, would you agree with that perspective? I mean, I'm an outsider here in the teachers and teaching world, so I don't want to jump to conclusions, but that's the idea I'm getting. I mean, would you corroborate or have anything correct with that?
No, I would definitely agree with that. And I think that a lot of times we try too hard as teachers. Like if we look at child language acquisition, most parents are not trying to get their children to acquire a language. And the thing about it is that it's going to be repeated in the input. The important structures and words and things are going to turn up again and again and again in all sorts of different contexts. And it's not going to, nobody's going to acquire it in just one shot.
Right.
It's got to turn up again and again, and they'll acquire little bits and pieces of it as we go along. So the whole educational outfit is set up completely wrong for learning languages, because you can't grade that. You can't test that. And it's going to be non-linear, right? They're going to go up, and then it's going to seem like they, are why are they doing poorly? But really they're not doing poorly. It's just like maybe their brain is, working things out.
Sure. Sure.
So it's, I think we try too hard.
Yeah.
We can just and like, Beniko Meisen, is kind of the stance that you don't have to try to target things. You don't have to try to to teach. If you just tell the interesting stories, it's going to happen. It's in the input.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is part of why I'm doing this. I also did an appendix video. I don't know if you've seen it, about inductive, deductive. Why this is, even on a theoretical basis, not going to work with just deductive knowledge. But also, my hope is that it might be useful for the story listening people as well, because with a demonstration in hand, it's like, no, it does work. The brain does work it out. The brain is gathering data. You can't spot a pattern until you've gathered a number of items to spot the pattern. So you're giving input, they haven't spotted the pattern yet, doesn't mean nothing's happened. They're gathering examples. Right. Once they've got enough examples, they'll get the pattern in a flash. Until that moment, it looks like you haven't got anything. But I really feel that this demonstration, in the right hands, in the right way, and if presented with humility, has a chance of helping to change minds there.
I hope so. Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
So, just to finish off, would you have any constructive criticism or feedback about the course? If anybody does something similar in the future, what should they watch for that they could do better than what I did?
I think you did really good. It was so I guess the one thing, if there's anything at all, is it was a little bit surprising to me after having gone through the 20 episodes of fables and things like that, and then all of a sudden we have like these kind of historical, like real world accounts, and I enjoyed those, but it was a little bit jarring. I guess. And so it might have been nice to have a transition of maybe like 5 episodes or something where it kind of fades into that a little bit more. I don't know how much of a problem, because I felt like the fables, like the language that I had gathered from the fables had prepared me pretty well to understand the contents of that, but it still was a little bit of a shock. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Fair enough. So the thing that one comment I was getting was that of course when I posted about this and there were some CI teachers watching them, some of them were saying, well, I can't understand anything after the first 14-15 seconds. And I think what they meant was they weren't able to work out the form meaning connections. So understanding, they mean knowing what each word is doing.
Right.
And they were put off by that. Some watched the first video and found it hard going, which I concede. If I could do it all over again, I think I might do like shorter, more visual stories. I think I mentioned it in another episode, whereby you could have very simple everyday stories like making breakfast or something. As long as there's a kind of story and there's a problem and the solution to the problem, then you have yourself a story and it's compelling enough. And if it's something very visual, like somebody's trying to catch the bus or something, it's a bus and there's a person running after the bus, and it's something visual. It's about something visual. So I might have started with those to begin with, just to get people into the groove of following along with the story and just allowing the words to be noise and not being worried about that. So yeah, I mean, if people can kind of push through the first few and get that tolerance of ambiguity a bit,
right? Yeah,
I think it can be. I think it can work. But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't understand like the first, I don't know, probably the first 4 or 5 episodes, like I didn't understand a whole lot, but I knew that if I kept going, that things would be repeated over and over again, like the important things, and knowing also that there are only 120 words, which is something that you wouldn't have in a living language. You wouldn't have that kind of confidence. Like I was thinking, there's 120 words. I'm sure I'm going to be in contact with all of them by the end of the 30 episodes. And so that kind of gave me a reason to just kind of to chill out and, just let it go. But I'll tell you the thing that really clicked for me. When I really felt like this is really something worthwhile or something that is effective, is when you started having the morals to the fables. And it was like that made it so compelling
Okay.
to me to listen. Like I was listening to the story, and I'm like, I wonder, some of obviously like the rabbit and the hare, like everybody knows that story. But some of the stories, it's like, what is he going to say at the end of this story? Like what's the moral going to be? And that made it so compelling and so rewarding to be able to understand the story and then be able to see how the moral and the story fit together. I was like, wow, that's compelling input, exactly like what Krashen talks about. So
Yeah,
I thought
and
that really worked
I
well.
think that's I suppose that's the pin, because comprehensible on which level? So,
Mm-hmm.
we learn language, well, we acquire language when we understand messages. Okay, yes, but
Mm-hmm.
there's messages on an utterance level. So
Mm-hmm.
here is the hare, and here is the tortoise, and here's what's going on in the story. But there's the message, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had a couple of comments on YouTube saying, "Oh, this guy's teaching me a life lesson." I'm not shouting about this. and what I was saying was, take it or leave it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not here to be preachy,
Mm-hmm.
but there has to be a point. So what is the point I'm trying to get across? When there is that, then, as you say, it's compelling, but also it's kind of confirmation of comprehension. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
feel like you have a handle on the moral of the story and how it relates to the story, then that is what gives you the confidence that you have comprehended it enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt when
Right.
when those things came together. I was like, oh, I actually understood what he was
Yes.
saying, and that was the first time that I really realized that I understood basically the whole
Mhm.
story.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a confirmation. So regardless of whether or not you agree with the moral,
Mm-hmm.
that's beside the point. The point is that we've just
Right.
engaged in a communicative act. I've
Mm-hmm.
communicated an idea to you using a
Mm-hmm.
story, and you've got the idea, and that's the comprehension has been achieved. So yeah, that's very. I'm happy to hear that from you. Yeah, that's good. All right. Okay. Well, all told, I think it's been good. So yeah, thank you very, very much.
You're
For,
certainly welcome. Thank you for the wonderful resource.
well, I hope it serves you well, and yeah, keep us posted as to where it goes. So just to wrap up, if you want to go and find these um, preachy, moralizing videos for yourself, then go over to YouTube and search for the abbreviation OPETP, which is the abbreviation for O Pilin Toki Pona, and you'll find the videos. And then, of course, there's this 30-day Comprehensible Input Challenge. If you want to take it yourself and come on the show, you're more than welcome. Just go to bit.ly/bit.ly/30dc and you're good to go. So yeah, thanks very much. Pona
Thank you.
na, Yan Kao.
Yan Seme?
Telekoman, Yan Telekoman.
Ah, mi 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 mi
Sina Yan
mi
Ke.
pana
Sina
Ken?
Ken? Yan Ke.
Ken?
Yan Ke.
Yanke. Ah,
Pona.
Pona tawa sina.
Pona tawa sina.
Okay.